This is Jim Couri. I'm here today to talk to all of you about a $27 million scam orchestrated by the law firm of Russo and Burke and Joe Burke in order to aid his client, who for the time being I'm not going to mention any names because I intend to still bind myself to a restraining order that was stimulated by Mr. Burke in 2005 that has been violated by him and his client repeatedly. Mr. Burke has set the foundation in order to scam my $20 million that is legitimately owed to me by his client and convert that into a $7 million windfall of a bogus claim and counterclaim asserted against me by his client that has no basis in fact or in law, but just said so because Mr. Burke decided to create it. Never produced a scintilla of evidence that any claim existed between me and Mr. Burke's client. Now, how has Mr. Burke been able to do this and get away with it? Some I will be able to discuss with you now, and some I will reserve for a later video. What Mr. Burke has now tried to do, and all but somewhat successfully, is compromise a notary in California and setting it up as if I forged my own affidavits. And now Mr. Burke claims, because he knows the whole scam is so preposterous, he now claims that I am hiding in New York, secreted the notary stamp to make the court believe that I'm still in California. Now, in order to accomplish this, Mr. Burke has decided, and also somewhat successfully, to go around bad-mouthing me to prosecutors, saying I'm a terrible guy and that I've done all of these dastardly things, when in fact Mr. Burke himself is the con man. The notary in this case is a woman by the name of Eileen Ohanian. I met Miss Ohanian in 2008, June or July, when I took space in Beverly Hills, California for an office. Miss Ohanian was working there part-time in the mailroom. She was introduced to me as a notary. Thereafter, Miss Ohanian notarized a number of documents for me and notarized a number of documents, I think 3 or 4, for my wife. Miss Ohanian, then recognizing that I was ill and that I was in and out of the hospital for various surgeries, one day had a discussion with me about my use of her notary services. And it was decided, and I thought rather fairly, that she was going to provide me with some 30 or 35 blank sheets of paper in which, with those blank sheets of paper, she would sign as notary with her stamp, and I would sign, and therefore I would have them as a fail-safe if I was stuck in the hospital, which I was stuck many times in the hospital. I thought nothing further about it. She prepared those papers, she gave them to me, I signed her book, I signed these blank sheets, and that was the end of it. Now Mr. Burke has concocted a whole series of despicable events, making it look like I've done something dastardly. Well, I'm going to try to show all of you who are listening to this today that Mr. Burke is a fraud and a liar. First of all, you all should know that Russo and Burke have been cited by a number of other cases of being extortionists. There's a case called Yanev versus Russo and Burke, 2009 Civ 06057, in which Burke and his firm were accused of extorting legitimate creditors by forging a supposed summons with notice that these people were served and shaking them down to try to get them to pay money that they didn't owe. Now, Mr. Burke also has a partner by the name of Kenneth Gomez. Mr. Gomez has been found to have filed at least 2 perjured affidavits in a case that I was involved with him. And Mr. Pavia, who is orchestrating all of this, is a master at forgery and notaries. I learned when I was involved in litigation with George Pavia and his wife that my greenhouse in my apartment, which was located in Pavia's building, was hazardous. It was cited as hazardous by the Department of Buildings in New York. Not once, 5 times. Unbeknownst to me, the Pavias filed a phony certificate of correction saying that that greenhouse was fixed and filed it. When I learned of that, I looked at the document, I sought out the notary. Pavia swore that wasn't his signature. The notary says it was. Now, who else would have a reason to lie? Pavia is a past master at lying. He converted his in-laws' building on 77th Street to a school for his wife for artwork and converted the equity in that building to himself, to his wife, and to his child, an adult child, and did so repeatedly by forging his in-laws' signatures. Now, there was no gift tax paid, and Pavia has so far made off with unjustly enriching himself and his wife to some $20 million, the value of that building. Now let me go back to Miss Ohanian. Miss Ohanian swears in an affidavit that was filed in August, or signed in August, that she, acting on behalf of, as being a notary, signed notarizations of documents that I signed before her 51 times. 50 in 2008, once in 2009. She signs that affidavit under penalty of perjury. Mr. Burke also signs an affidavit dovetailing those allegations, that claiming that anything after January 12, 2009, everything is a forgery that I submitted with Miss Ohanian's name on it. Miss Ohanian also points out that the signatures are markedly different on what she admits that she signed and what she says is a forgery. She's right. There is a difference in those signatures. So clearly, if I were going to try to forge Miss Ohanian's name, I would try to do so in such a way that were a little bit more sophisticated than the way it looks on the surface. Now, what I have done is, I believe, caught Mr. Burke and Miss Ohanian in the web of their own scheme. On November 23rd or 24th of 2008, a document was presented to Miss Ohanian that she admits she notarized. Now, remember that Ohanian and I were in the same office. Now, she testifies in her affidavit that we were in the same building. That's a lie. We were in the same office, about 25 yards away from each other, she being in the mailroom and my being in an office approximately 25 yards away from her. On the 27th or 28th of November, I have another affidavit. We're right in the same office. She signs that.